We're going to start with Ryan and his colleague from ESPN, Bill Connolly. Now, every month they do the ESPN FC Premier League table re-ranked. So basically the form teams rather than the actual points. So Janusz and Ryan and myself are going to take a look at some of the decisions that have been made. We're going to split it up into three sections: the title race, the race for the top four, and to try and avoid the drop. We're going to start with the title race before we get to the ridiculous positioning of Everton. That's still to come. So who have you got as your top three in that order, Ryan, and why?
Number one, probably to the surprise of very few people, is Manchester City. Arsenal, number two, and Liverpool, number three. I think, City are the betting favorites. They're now in position where if they average the most points per game in the Premier League from here on out, they'll win the league. And then between Arsenal and Liverpool, we did just see Arsenal totally dominate Liverpool 2 weeks ago. So I think that gave them the tiebreaker in mine and Bill's mind. Okay,
Janusz, do you think those three teams are far and away clear of everybody else in the table? Is it the top three and one more Champions League spot up for grabs, or can you foresee any of those three perhaps being dragged into a fight for fourth?
No, I don't see it. I mean, it's just a question of who's going to win it out of these three, and the rest is just hoping to get in the fight for the top 4 or 5, right? Because we don't know that. And, if it's 5, then it makes it easier a little bit later for us to chat about, I suppose, the Champions League spots. But here it's going to be decided between these three. With I have to agree, with Manchester City, given their experience, given the fact that everybody's healthy for the most part, the players that matter anyway. They're the favorites right now. But I can't see a scenario where Manchester City won't win the.
You can or you can't.
I can. Yes, I think. Look, I mean, we'll never know. Obviously, I look at the schedule, and some are tougher than others. I look at Manchester City, and I see a spell of United, Liverpool, Brighton away, and Arsenal. And that, if I had to just compare the schedule of Liverpool, for example, it's more forgiven. I do think that with all things being equal, if we get to the Liverpool against Manchester City match, if Liverpool wins that game, I think Liverpool will win the Premier League. Whoever wins, let me put it that way: whoever wins that game, a draw, I think is going to make it more complicated. So leave that out because it's better narrative for us. But I think if Liverpool beat Manchester City in that game, and coming into it, they're still a couple points ahead, or even, within a point or even, I think Liverpool, the momentum, the Jurgen Klopp story, everything else is going to be enough. That's my belief.
Okay, Ryan, you've got Liverpool in third, but they have won the title recently under Jurgen Klopp. Can Arsenal be trusted not to drop stupid points, given that they haven't been over this ground under Mikel Arteta before?
I mean, we've already seen them drop some stupid points, starting with the Aston Villa game, then drawing with Liverpool at Anfield after winning, and then the 2 losses to West Ham at Fulham. But I think since then, we've kind of seen that, there was really nothing wrong with Arsenal during that stretch. I like the West Ham game, they outshot West Ham 30-5 or something like that. And that was really just one of those games. The Fulham game was a 50-50 game, I think, which you probably don't want to be playing a 50-50 game with Fulham if you're Arsenal. But when you play a 50-50 game, sometimes you win. Most of the time you don't lose. So I think with Arsenal, they've dropped points already, but it's mostly kind of just due to the bounce of the ball. But yeah, I mean, we have seen Liverpool sustain this absurd pace for a full season. It's happened, 3 times, right? They've pushed way above the 90-point pace and kept pace with City and kind of lost 2 titles, not really due to any fault of their own. So we haven't seen it with Arsenal, but I just think Arsenal have been really fantastic. So, can't get into I don't know the emotional fiber of the team as a whole, I guess, because we haven't seen it tested that much, but the quality of their play has been truly fantastic recently.
Okay, let's get on to the race for the top 4. Basically, is it one spot available for all of these teams? Well, according to Janusz and Ryan, yes, because the top 3 in whichever order will finish in that spot. So you've kind of gone with the first four as their Premier League positions. Chelsea's an interesting one because you've got them 3 places higher than where they are in the table, and Brighton in 9th. So there's not much movement there. Ryan, was it an easy decision to rank these European Champions League chasers?
Yeah, I don't feel super confident about 4 through 9 here, I would say. I think, as Janusz touched on, I think the top 3 are just so far ahead of the rest of the league, I think, in a way that we really haven't seen in a long time. I think you could make an argument that those are the 3 best teams in Europe. I'm not going to do that right now, but you could make it. Here, if Tottenham play Brighton, do I have a strong lean whether that Tottenham's going to beat Brighton? No, I would not go into that game confidently. But I think, I think just the point totals accrued by Tottenham and Villa make them both very likely to finish 4th and 5th.
And the goal difference as well, Ryan.
Yeah, and the goal difference. Yeah, obviously you see Man U's somehow are in 6th with a even goal difference, which they continue to do this, and I don't understand how they win so many points with barely outscoring their opponents ever. But yeah, I think the theme of this is that, yes, it matches the table, and maybe that's kind of anchored our thinking a little bit. But I think there's not much to pick between these teams if we kind of clean the slate. Let's say everyone had 0 points and we played the final 15 games or so.
Janusz, it's going to be tough for Newcastle. It was announced today that Callum Wilson's probably facing 3 months on the sidelines. Alexander Isak not yet ready to come back. Anthony Gordon probably going to have to start through the middle again. So it's been tough for them with Champions League and not having the biggest squad, having some bad luck with injuries. Out of the full screen that we've just seen and the positions, Manchester United, as Ryan spoke about, with a kind of level goal difference, is there any one of these teams that could go on a run and maybe steal 4th away from either Spurs or Villa? Or do you think it's between Spurs or Villa for that final place in the top 4?
I think it's between Spurs, Villa, and Manchester United. Everything else, as you see it here, I mean, the point difference is impossible. I mean, Newcastle is not going to make that up on the assumption of 4 places. But even with 5, I just don't see how that happens. Chelsea, that's impossible for me as well. And I don't even want to talk about Brighton. I mean, they may make it interesting. In the end, that difference may be much, much smaller, but it's too much. I mean, you're asking these teams like Newcastle and Chelsea, if this is what you're asking, you're asking those teams to run the table. And even then, it may not be enough, right? I mean, it's crazy. It's just a question who falls out. Right now, obviously 5 points of Villa, but I mean, so many worries about Villa. I actually think that if someone is going to drop out of that, even when it's 5, even with 5 points difference in hand for Villa, they're in trouble. I mean, they've been great at home for a time, and now they're starting to lose games at home, not just in the Premier League. I know we're talking here, but in the cup competitions as well. You're talking about 3 center backs with, Tyron Mings and Diego Carlos and Ezri Konsa being out. Boubacar Kamara is out right now. So I know they have a lot going forward, but remember, we've talked about how great it is when you're winning, but Unai Emery can be very uncomfortable manager when things don't go your way. So I worry about Villa, and, they have a 5-point cushion.
So as for the potential 3 to go down, let's have a look at the race to avoid the drop. Now, there's a couple of teams I want to mention. West Ham in the middle section are 8th in the table, but down in 13th in Ryan and Bill's re-ranking the Premier League, which I think is fair. Now, the one team that isn't involved here, which I think should be, is the team that are 3rd bottom right now of the actual table, Everton. But they do not feature at all in this. They're 10th in your rankings. And that's down 4. You had them in 6th last time. What was the reasoning behind that? And are we going to see them drop 8 places next time when you kind of realize, ooh, this is a bit of an issue here, Ryan?
What did Everton do to hurt you? That's what
Nothing. I want. Everton's positioning up in 6th the last time out was the one that I found incredulous.
It was a mistake, Ryan, right? I mean, it's impossible you could have thought that way.
I think at that point of the season, there was
just joking. They're good. Yeah.
The outside of the top 5, it was very muddled. I think we forget at that point in the season. And I think with Everton now, it's actually a really easy answer to your question, Mark. They had a 10-point deduction. If they just had the points that they actually earned this season in terms of their performance, they'd be in 12th. And so I'm just saying they're in 12th points wise. I think they've been a little unfortunate in some of their games. They're only -1 if you look at non-penalty goal difference. So yeah, they would not be even close to the relegation battle if they just had all of their points. So I don't think we can, these are rankings of the team's quality going forward, right? So we're not, the fact that they're being penalized by the Premier League for violating financial rules says nothing about the actual quality of the team in a vacuum.
So if I was to take your credit card and spend loads of money on presents for Janusz and me, it wouldn't really matter, because it doesn't matter about the cash at all as far as what you do with this league table as well. Are you willing to allow us your credit card to go and splash?
I can barely understand the metaphor that you're making here.
Money doesn't matter. So you can spend what you want. Well, and if you got a 10-point deduction, it doesn't matter, because you'll still be mid-table in Ryan and Bill's reassessed league table.
Well, but we're not, I mean, it wouldn't be very fun if we just did a piece where we were like, these are the 20 best teams, and it just matched the Premier League table exactly. That you guys would not have me on the show to talk about it. We're just like ranking the actual quality of the team going forward, right? We think basically on a neutral field, if these teams played each other over the next 2 weeks, this is where they would be favored. And Everton would not be a bottom 3 team in that kind of ranking. I think if you looked at the betting markets, if they played Luton, they would be favored to beat them on a neutral field relatively.
Yes, Ryan. Yes and no. I mean, yeah, the 10 points, but based on quality. I mean, okay, they had a good run. Many teams during the season have good runs, right? I mean, this Everton team, and this is, the points were taken away a long time ago, and they went on a great run to get away from it, right? And here we are, we're looking at 3 draws and 2 losses in the last couple of games. We're looking at a team that's been tinkering with relegation for how many seasons now, right? Okay, I get you the 10 points. I mean, if Liverpool didn't lose to Arsenal, oh well, they would have been maybe a few points ahead. So I get what you're saying, but I think realistically, we're looking at a team that, yeah, we can sit here and say, Sean Dyche, we like, his energy, this, that, or the other. They have the sort of players that you think they shouldn't be there. But we've been saying that for a long time. I mean, they're in real trouble. I think they deserve to be even lower, because one decent run doesn't change the season. The 10 points, I get it, but it's not the fault of the players. But again, I'm looking at Everton, who for the last 3 seasons, it's a great escape every time. Points taken away or not. And that quality of the team has been better than, most teams in the last part of the 3 seasons. That's why I would put him out there. And I genuinely worry about them.
I think your argument is very good, Ryan. And unfortunately for us, when we go fishing, you don't tend to bite. You're not a Stevie Nicol or one of the others where you just go like that. You've done all right. So I appreciate that. The one question I want for both of you before we move on to preview Manchester City against Chelsea, the big game this weekend, Saturday, 12:30 Eastern. The top, we've discussed. The European spots, we've discussed. The bottom 3, the 3 teams that go down. Now, I know we've discussed Everton, but I think you're right. Luton, Burnley, Sheffield United, okay? Those 3 teams have just come up. Janusz, which one of them, from what you've seen recently, has the best chance of not being in the bottom 3? And bearing in mind, Luton are not in the bottom 3 right now because Everton are. But in Ryan and Bill's re-ranking the Premier League, Luton are. So who's most likely to get themselves out and extricate themselves from that position, Janusz?
I mean, I don't want to complicate things. I had those 3 going down before the season, but I mean, if I look at the point, Burnley and Sheffield United, I mean, how do I make a case with 7 points? Well, I mean, 8 points. I just can't, logically, I can't make that case. I don't see any indication. I mean, okay, Sheffield, what I would say is that Luton has been showing signs, but then lose to Sheffield United, was it at home, right? I mean, that tells you everything. So Forest, I like this because I would have had the same exact way regardless of criteria that Ryan has, right? Because it's a little bit different than that of mine, just kind of analyzing the teams as they are. But I think I would have, because Forest, I worry, Espirito Santo came in. First couple games was okay, and now, back to the pretty much to the same. But I do think that they have more quality than Luton, for example. I mean, different way. Obviously, we know that Luton can hurt you with that direct style, big team, big physical, and all that. So, of course, Luton can get out, and I could see Forest dropping off. But as it stands right now, I'm sticking with Ryan and what we just saw.
I have to say, Ryan, the only gripe that I certainly have, and Janusz has to a degree, is Everton. So to have only one out of 20 that we kind of have a disagreement about, I think this is a pretty fair re-ranking of the Premier League for you and Bill this time.
To me, that I feel like we're doing something wrong. We gotta annoy you guys a little more next time.
Everton top 6 next time.